and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Naomi Campbell. Let's get started. Our top story tonight talks about a huge setback for China. We tell you about how the Chinese nuclear submarine sank. What really happened? We take you through the questions that have now been triggered. We also tell you, meanwhile, about what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We tell you how America has been left frustrated after Netanyahu has defied calls for a ceasefire. We tell you what's brewing. After a group of Indian mountaineers named a previously unnamed peak in Arunachal Pradesh after the 6th Dalai Lama, why does China seem to be fuming? Netanyahu says Israel will not stop attacks on Hezbollah despite ceasefire calls. A Dubai man has bought a 418 crore island so that his wife can wear a bikini. We tell you why. All this and more coming up. Our top story tonight focuses on the Chinese nuclear submarine that sank. And like we said, it raises a number of crucial questions. Our top story is about China. Its newest nuclear-powered submarine has sunk, but not recently. It sank months ago in the spring. The cause of the sinking is not clear, and when asked, Beijing feigned ignorance. A Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson has said he was not familiar with the topic, but Beijing's response is not surprising. After all, this is a major setback for China. It has been trying to expand its naval prowess. But recently uncovered satellite imagery suggests that China has definitely lost the submarine. Still, the mysterious sinking of China's nuclear submarine does lead to several serious questions. Why is China trying to conceal the cause of the sinking? Was the submarine carrying nuclear fuel at the time of the sinking? Why is China tight-lipped about potential nuclear risks? These are crucial questions after all. You see, China's attack submarine was the first of its new Zhou-class line of vessels. It was under construction at the Wuchang shipyard, located near the city of Wuhan. The Zhou-class submarines have a distinctive X-shaped stern designed to improve maneuverability underwater. On the 10th of March, satellite images showing the Zhou-class submarine with its signature X-shaped tail docked at the port. But imagery from later in June shows that the submarine did not return to the pier. Where did it go? U.S. defense officials say that it sank. The incident was first reported by the American news outlet Wall Street Journal. It came to light after satellite images showed cranes trying to lift the submarine from the bottom of the river. According to reports, the unusual activity at the shipyard was noticed by Tom Shugart. He is an adjunct senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security. Shugart routinely studies satellite imagery of Chinese shipyards. He told American media that he had never seen a bunch of cranes clustered around one spot. In the satellite images, he also noticed the submarine's larger size and distinctive tail, which indicated to him that this was a new class of submarines. Reports say that while the submarine has been salvaged, the extent of the damage and the exact cause of the sinking remain unclear. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said on Friday he was not familiar with the topic and did not provide any information when asked.
I'm not aware of what you have just mentioned. Next question, please.
The submarine's current status is not known. It's also not clear whether the submarine had nuclear fuel on board. Now, here's why this matters. Not only is the loss of China's first nuclear-powered attack submarine a significant setback for the country, the sinking also raises questions about the quality of China's military equipment, its training standards, and the internal oversight of its defense industry. As it is, China's defense industry has been plagued by rampant corruption. For years, you see, China has made the modernization of its military, especially of its navy and submarine force, its highest priority. The Xi Jinping regime seeks to build a world-class military on par with its rival, the United States. China's latest military power report says that the PLA Navy operates 6 nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, 6 nuclear-powered attack submarines and 48 diesel-powered attack submarines. In comparison, the U.S. Navy has 53 fast attack submarines, 14 ballistic missile submarines, and 4 guided missile submarines. Most importantly, the entire American submarine fleet is nuclear-powered. China, for that matter, is also working on expanding its ability to produce new submarines. This is as the Chinese Navy retires older submarines. According to U.S. Congressional Research Service, China is expected to have 65 submarines in 2025 and 80 more by 2035. Now, these numbers have been drawn based on the growth of China's submarine construction capacity. Remember, China has the world's largest navy by the number of ships. Just to give you an idea here, the PLA Navy has 370 platforms. This includes 234 warships. In comparison, the US has 219 warships. China is also rapidly expanding its fleet of submarines, ships, and naval aircraft. No wonder then the US sees China as its long-term pacing challenge. According to a 2022 Pentagon report, the question that one can ask here is this: why does China need so many ships and submarines? Is it actually preparing for war? You see, Xi Jinping's China's biggest goal is to achieve maritime superiority, at least within the first island chain. That's the stretch of territory that extends from the Japanese archipelago through Taiwan and the Philippines to the South China Sea. And therefore, China's Zhou-class submarine that sank represents a critical component of its naval expansion. It is first of the new class of nuclear-powered attack submarines that was designed to boost China's undersea warfare capabilities. The Zhou-class submarines are part of China's broader efforts to build a blue water navy, a navy capable of projecting China's power far beyond its shores and counter American naval presence in the region. The loss of this submarine would basically represent a major embarrassment for China, to say the least. And that is why it remains tight-lipped about the loss. This response, by the way, is consistent with the Chinese military's practice of downplaying or outrightly denying mishaps, especially those that could tarnish the image of its military power. Well, it looks like the damage has been done. In Taipei, Taiwan's defense minister, Wellington Koo, confirmed that the authorities had monitored the situation. Koo said, and I'm quoting here, "We have a grasp of the situation through multiple intelligence and surveillance methods." He did not elaborate further, but Taiwan, under constant threat from China, closely tracks Chinese military activities, especially if it has to do with movements in the Taiwan Strait. In fact, experts have also raised concern about potential environmental and safety risks posed by the sinking of the nuclear submarine. While it is unclear if the submarine was carrying nuclear fuel, many speculate that it likely was. According to US officials, there aren't any signs that Chinese authorities checked the water for radiation. And this also raises additional concerns about transparency and accountability. Shugarth, the man who first noticed the unusual activity in the Chinese shipyard, this is astonishing, according to him. He asks, can you imagine an American nuclear submarine sinking and the government hushing it up? Well, he is not wrong. This is a legitimate concern. Salvaging a submarine takes a lot of work, after all, before it can actually be put out to the sea again. Ultimately, China's naval buildup has been impressive, but the sinking of the submarine underscores the challenges that the country faces in matching the US in terms of undersea warfare. And it looks like China's naval modernization is not without its setbacks. And if anything, this incident will undoubtedly weigh heavily on China's naval leadership. Shifting focus now, after a group of Indian mountaineers named a previously unnamed peak in Arunachal Pradesh after the 6th Dalai Lama, China seems to be fuming. Why is that? Well, because Beijing believes Arunachal Pradesh is part of its territory. But here's the thing, and a reminder for China. Arunachal Pradesh is undeniably part of India. And India has every right to honor historical figures, especially someone like the 6th Dalai Lama, who was born in Arunachal Pradesh in 1683. After all, it's about paying tributes to a figure who, as per reports, holds immense significance for the Monpa community in the region and for Tibetan Buddhists around the world. As per reports, the 15-day expedition was led by the National Institute of Mountaineering and Adventure Sports under the Ministry of Defence of India. They scaled the 20,942-foot peak, among the most technically challenging summits in the region due to its ice walls, treacherous crevices, and 3-kilometer-long glacier. What did China do? They called the naming of the peak illegal, null, and void. According to China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian, the renaming of the peak violates their territorial claims over Arunachal Pradesh, which they refer to as Zhangnan or Southern Tibet.
I've answered this question yesterday. The Southern Tibet region is Chinese territory. India's establishment of the so-called Arunachal Pradesh on Chinese territory is illegal and invalid. The Chinese side's position on this issue has always been clear.
Now, let's just take a step back and look at the broader context here. China's objection to this peak being named comes at a time when the two sides are reportedly working towards disengaging troops along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh. Yes, there is a talk of reducing tensions, building consensus, disengaging troops. But even as China says one thing, the actions do speak volumes in another direction. You see, for years now, Beijing has been engaging in provocative actions, whether it's renaming places in Arunachal Pradesh or building infrastructure in disputed areas. Just this past March, China, as per reports, renamed 30 locations in Arunachal Pradesh with Chinese and Tibetan names. But this was nothing new. It's part of China's ongoing strategy to try and assert its claims over the Indian state. And it's not the first time, of course. They did the same in 2017 and again in 2021. Each time, India firmly rejected these name changes. The renaming of places by China does not change the facts on the ground, after all. Arunachal Pradesh is a part of India. And it's not just names that China is objecting to, really. China regularly objects to any Indian leader's visit to Arunachal Pradesh as a way to reinforce its territorial claims. A case in point is from earlier this year itself, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi in March visited Arunachal Pradesh and inaugurated the Sela Tunnel, a crucial infrastructure project that enhances troop mobility in the region. And soon after, China raised objections to that visit. Let's not forget, China's issues over Arunachal Pradesh is just one part of the bigger story. Relations between India and China have been going through their share of complications, especially since the Galwan Valley clash in 2020. The standoff in Ladakh sent ties between the two countries to their lowest point in decades. In fact, thousands of troops remain stationed along the LAC, with the two sides building up infrastructure and military presence. So while China continues to make noise about Arunachal Pradesh, India stands firm. As the festival of Durga Puja draws nearer, Bangladesh's Hindu community is under threat once again in Bangladesh. This time, a radical group reportedly is calling for Durga Puja to not be celebrated in public in a part of Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka, raising fears that Durga Puja, a festival that's central to their culture there, especially for the Bengali community, is in further jeopardy. A direct assault on religious freedom, all while the Bangladeshi interim government seems to be a passive observer. As per reports, a radical group, the Insaf Kimkari Chhatra Janta, staged a protest against the celebration of Durga Puja in Dhaka's Sector 13 area. They reportedly demanded that Hindus abandon the festival, going so far as to issue threats if idol worship or immersion ceremonies continue. They marched through the streets holding placards that allegedly had an anti-Hindu rhetoric, such as no worship to idols, no idol immersion. These slogans were coupled with a 16-point list of demands, reportedly aimed at suppressing Hindu traditions. The radical group claimed that the immersion of idols pollutes water and that government resources should not be used to support such religious activities. That's not all. They said that Durga Puja should not be recognized as a national holiday, as Hindus form just 2% of the population. They framed it as an affront to the Muslim majority, insisting that Muslims should not support or even tolerate such un-Islamic celebrations. Let's just take a pause here and get the facts right. Hindus may be a minority, but they form nearly 8% of Bangladesh's population. That's 13 million people we are talking about. The demands made by this particular group taking a further sinister turn. They don't just want to curtail Durga Puja celebrations. They reportedly also want to eliminate Hindu temples, claiming that they occupy special lands in Bangladesh. And they also call for anti-India banners and slogans to be placed in temples as a testament for Hindus to prove their loyalty towards Bangladesh and their anti-India stance. And let's not forget, these developments come in the backdrop of reports of increasing vandalism of temples and the destruction of idols in Bangladesh. Just to make matters worse, the interim government of Bangladesh, under the leadership of Muhammad Yunus, has done very little to protect the Hindu minority. In fact, Yunus's government has only made suggestions that experts believe could further erode religious freedom. The government, remember, called for a pause in Durga Puja festivities during Muslim prayer times, specifically demanding that no music be played during the azan and namaz. This may sound like a simple request for mutual respect, but it comes at the expense of a religious community under increasing threat. Reports from Bangladesh's Khulna and other parts revealing that Hindus are being extorted for the right to celebrate Durga Puja. In some cases, community members are reportedly being forced to pay as much as 5 lakh Bangladeshi taka to carry out Durga Puja celebrations, and failing to do so will lead to dire consequences as per reports. Reports also say that many organizers have already called off the celebrations, while some have also approached the police. Despite repeated assurances from Muhammad Yunus, the attacks on Hindu life and property continue to rise, especially after the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. The fall of Hasina's government and the rise of the interim administration under Yunus seem to have left Hindus and other minorities even more vulnerable. Ever since Hasina's departure, reports of violence against Hindus have been reported from at least 75% of Bangladesh's districts. So the question now is, if these attacks are left unchecked, it won't be just the festival that is in danger, but it seems the very existence of that community and other minority communities in Bangladesh. Meanwhile, a statement by Muhammad Yunus in the US is gaining a lot of attention. As per reports on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York, Yunus delivered a keynote address at an event of Clinton Global Initiative, which was in fact attended by Yunus's friend for over 40 years, former US President Bill Clinton. And during that speech, several statements by Yunus raised eyebrows. What are we talking about? Yunus is seen thanking Clinton and the US for their support. Listen in.
Every single person in Bangladesh support this cause. And I'm very happy at the support in the people of the United States to make that happen. And the sky's the limit. They want to make this Bangladesh called New Bangladesh.
So why are these statements causing concern and raising eyebrows? You see, after Sheikh Hasina had to step down and fled the country, questions started doing the rounds on the reasons behind Hasina's ouster. Reports surfaced about a potential US involvement that caused this to happen. An allegation that the US, by the way, has always distanced itself from. Whether Yunus's statement holds true or not, we do not know, but it certainly does raise questions about America's involvement. Whether the interim government sheds more light on this or takes action against curbing the growing radicalization and anti-Hindu sentiment remains to be seen. One thing is clear, though, it's time for Bangladesh to address its immediate past and present is running out. And as the conflict in Ukraine intensifies, President Biden finds himself navigating a precarious diplomatic landscape. Our next report telling you about how the latest meeting with President Zelensky highlights the complex interplay between supporting an ally and averting a potential nuclear crisis.
A new day and a new fire to fight. Russia is sharpening its attack on Ukraine. It is relentlessly raining down missiles and drones. The southern Ukrainian town of Izmail is the latest to feel the fury of Russian assault. The city of Kramatorsk in Ukraine's Donetsk region has been hit repeatedly by Russian missiles, leaving behind death and destruction. Ukraine's neighbors too are feeling the heat. Romania scrambled F-16 jets, F-18 jets after Russian drones targeted Ukrainian civilian infrastructure close to the border. As Ukrainian forces struggle to hold back Russian advances in the east, the need for stronger retaliatory capabilities grows more urgent by the day. Amidst this grim backdrop, Zelensky's visit to Washington carries a singular mission: securing permission to employ long-range ATACMS missiles against Russian targets. These 300-kilometer range weapons, Ukrainians argue, could disrupt enemy supply lines and provide much-needed relief from border bombardments.
We have to strengthen Ukraine's position on the battlefield. And that's why today I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance. I've also directed the Pentagon to allocate all the remaining security assistance funding that has been appropriated for Ukraine, period, by the end of my term, which is January 20.
I raised with President Biden the plan of victory. Today we are preparing to discuss the details to strengthen the plan, coordinate our positions, views, and approaches. Our teams will work together to ensure the implementation of our future steps.
Despite announcing new military aid and air defense capabilities, Biden stopped short of greenlighting the long-range strikes. This decision, while frustrating for Kyiv, reflects a careful calculus to maintain support without crossing Moscow's nuclear red line. As the conflict evolves, the Biden administration treads a fine line between bolstering Ukraine's defense and preventing a catastrophic escalation. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Enough is enough.
On to West Asia now. The region remains on the boil. Netanyahu remains defiant. And the United States? Well, it's frustrated. But you see, frustration cannot help in ending a war. Who is going to tell America that? Israel rejected a push by allies for a 21-day ceasefire in Lebanon and vowed to keep fighting Hezbollah militants until victory. Israeli bombing of Iran-backed Hezbollah strongholds around Lebanon has killed hundreds of people this week, by the way, while the group has retaliated with rocket barrages. The United States, France, and other allies unveiled a 21-day truce on Wednesday, after President Joe Biden and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron met on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. But Netanyahu wanted nothing to do with it. The Israeli Prime Minister flatly rejected the ceasefire proposal on Thursday, ordering the military to continue fighting with full force. This is an embarrassment for the United States of America. The White House expressed frustration at the rejection, saying the truce proposal had taken a lot of care and effort. The national security spokesman, John Kirby, said in a statement on Thursday that we would not have made that statement, we would not have worked on that if we did not have reason to believe that the conversations that we were having with the Israelis in particular were supportive of the goal there. Sure. But expressing frustration only makes America look weak, embarrassingly so. It comes across as a humiliating failure, given just how long this has gone on for. The number of trips that Secretary of State Antony Blinken has made to the region, the number of statements that America has issued, but to what end? The effort made by the United States clearly has not worked. In fact, French President Emmanuel Macron noted that the ceasefire plan had been prepared with Netanyahu himself. Macron has said it was a mistake for Netanyahu to refuse a ceasefire and that he would have to take responsibility for a regional escalation. Sure, but what about America's responsibility here? Its duplicity is out there for the world to see. On Thursday, Israel said it had secured an $8.7 billion aid package from the United States to support its ongoing military efforts and to maintain a qualitative military edge in the region. Let me just say that again. Israel had said that it secured an $8.7 billion aid package from America to support its ongoing military efforts and to maintain a qualitative military edge. The package includes $3.5 billion for essential wartime procurement, which has already been received and earmarked for critical military purchases, $5.2 billion designated for air defense systems, including the Iron Dome anti-missile system, David Sling, and an advanced laser system. In fact, Israel's defense ministry has said in a statement that the aid announcement came after negotiations at the Pentagon between Eyal Zamir, the Director General of Israel's Defense Ministry, and U.S. defense officials. So, America is pumping in money, supporting Israel with billions of dollars of aid, while Israel defies ceasefire calls, leaving America frustrated. How convenient, right? The question is, why can't America use its military aid as a leverage for a ceasefire? Israel's ongoing bombardments in Lebanon have raised fears of an all-out catastrophic regional war in West Asia. In fact, Israel's military chief, Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, has told soldiers to prepare for a possible ground offensive. The joint ceasefire statement has said the situation in Lebanon has become intolerable and is in nobody's interest, neither of the people of Israel nor for the people of Lebanon. But who is going to convince Benjamin Netanyahu? In the space of 2 days, 2 of the 5 permanent members of the UNSC have backed India's bid for a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. Addressing the UNGA, French President Emmanuel Macron and then UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer have said the UNGA needs to act and not become paralyzed by politics.
Has to change to become a more representative body, willing to act, not paralysed by politics. We want to see permanent African representation on the Council. Brazil, India, Japan and Germany as permanent members. And more seats for elected members as well.
Starmer's backing for India is nothing new, except for China. All the 4 other permanent UNSC members have long argued India's case for a permanent place on the UNSC. And why not? Have a look at India's credentials. India is a founding member of the UN, consistently supporting its aims and objectives with concrete action. India is actualizing UN goals from international peace to security and safeguarding human rights. India has sent over 200,000 peacekeepers to the United Nations. That makes it one of the largest contributors of troops and police personnel towards global peacekeeping. India is a strong advocate for protecting the rights of women, children, and people with disabilities. At every forum, India has led the charge on efforts to combat climate change. In 2015, India clinched the negotiations on the Paris Agreement on climate change to limit global temperature increases and reduce carbon emissions. India has also proactively set 5 climate targets to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. Most importantly, India has put its money where its mouth is, not just advocating change or reforms, but giving the UN over $40 million every year to spend on peacekeeping, humanitarian assistance, and promoting human rights globally. India has articulated the growing needs of the Global South, underlining the significance of institutional reforms to maintain the relevance of the United Nations. The facts as they stand are undeniable. India is more than qualified to have a permanent seat at the UNSC. So then, why doesn't it have it? 4 of the permanent members, France, Russia, the UK, the US, have all endorsed India. Some, like Russia, have been at it for years together. But does their support ring true? It certainly doesn't seem that way, given that the endorsements for India have been continuing for years now, with nothing actually moving on the ground. The 4 permanent members seem to be only voicing their support for India because they know well that China will veto India's candidacy, it seems. It also is painfully clear that none of the 5 permanent members are serious about sharing or seeing their status whittled down by bringing India as a permanent member in the UNSC. In any case, making India a permanent member will require the rewriting of the UN Charter rules, a long process that will have many players involved in it, which makes the backing, at least by the permanent members, just so much empty talk that does not actually signify anything. Highlighting the increasing global backing for India's permanent membership at the UN Security Council, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has said sometimes things are not given generously, and one has to seize it. In India's case, this is certainly the demand of our times. Let me now tell you a story. If you have been on the internet lately, you must have heard the story about a Dubai businessman, Jamal Al-Nadak. He has recently made headlines on social media for buying a private island worth 418 crore rupees. That's about $50 million. Why? So that his wife, Saudi Al-Nadak, could wear a bikini in peace. Yes, you heard that right. An entire island for a bikini. Saudi, a British-born influencer living in Dubai, shared the news in an Instagram video which has now gone viral, proudly showing off the island her husband bought for her. What's the caption? POV, that's point of view. You wanted to wear a bikini, so your millionaire husband bought you an island. Sounds casual, right? Just buying an island. Also nothing new, by the way. The ultra-rich often buy private islands. But the video, now with over 2.4 million views, shows the couple jetting off to the island like it's the most normal thing in the world. The video has many online swooning and crowning Jamal with the tag of Husband of the Year. But some could not help but ask, really, is the only way to enjoy a day on the beach in Dubai to buy your own slice of paradise? The couple explained that while the purchase was part of an investment plan, the real motivation was to ensure Saudi's safety on a beach, where she could wear a swimsuit freely. Now, we get it, love makes us do crazy things, but an entire island just to wear a bikini? And this is not even Jamal's first grand gesture, by the way. The couple is no stranger to extravagance. Custom Ferraris, diamond rings, lavish vacations, they have documented it all. But this one seems to really take the cake. You see, beneath the glitz and glamour, this story also reveals something serious. Even with all the riches in the world, should a woman in Dubai need to find an island, literally, to enjoy the sun? To enjoy the simple act of wearing a bikini without fear or judgment? So what does this tell us? Sure, the gesture was grand, undoubtedly, but isn't it also telling of a place where money can buy anything, except perhaps true freedom for women? Although there is no law in the UAE forcing people to dress a certain way, respect towards the religion, culture and heritage is expected. No one usually tells people what to wear, but residents and visitors dress decently out of respect, not because they are forced to do so by the law, but because it is customary to dress modestly, especially in public spaces and places of worship. Where does that leave women like Saudi? With all the luxuries money can buy, but still needing a private island just to feel safe in their own skin. It tells us that in some parts of the world, you can have endless money, yachts, islands, fancy cars. But when it comes to personal freedom, especially for women, that price tag seems to be a lot harder to find. Are you a rice lover? What if you could have rice and not worry about sugar levels? Now, in case you were not aware, the two are linked. White rice has a high glycemic index. What does that mean? Basically, it can lead to spikes in the amount of sugar in the blood. In fact, research has shown a link between substantial consumption of rice and diseases like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. But what scientists in the Philippines have done is extraordinary. They have made a new variety of rice. This is no ordinary rice, by the way. It's special, to say the least. Just for context here, diabetes is a huge concern around the world, and this rice could help in reducing the growing burden of diabetes. Just to also help you with some numbers and get you some perspective, more than 60% of people with diabetes live in Asia. More than 537 million adults worldwide are living with diabetes. This figure is expected to increase to 783 million by 2045. These numbers are scary. And speaking of rice, more than 90% of the world's rice is produced and consumed in the Asia-Pacific region. So let's just tell you more about this special rice that's been made by scientists in the Philippines. It is a breakthrough. Researchers at the International Rice Research Institute, IRRI, in the Philippines, which has been working with the University of California, the Max Planck Institute of Molecular Plant Physiology in Germany, and Bulgaria's Center of Plant Systems Biology. The IRRI's rice gene bank is the biggest in the world, by the way. 380 seed samples were screened over 10 years to identify genes and markers with a lower glycemic index and higher protein content. What happened then? They then combined them into inbred lines, making what IRRI has called a diabetes-friendly, healthier rice option. How wonderful, right? So far, the rice has not been grown outside IRRI's laboratories, but the plan is to start growing the new varieties in India and the Philippines. Just to help you understand, sugary drinks, ultra-processed foods are big diabetes risks. Rice is not a huge culprit. It's not the leading cause for concern as far as type 2 diabetes is concerned. But this definitely comes as good news for people who are already living with diabetes and want to be able to make rice a part of their diet, and at the same time want to cut down on carbohydrates. On to West Asia now. Breaking news coming in right this minute from Beirut, Lebanon. A series of powerful explosions have been reported. Lebanese media there reporting a series of Israeli airstrikes on the Hezbollah-controlled southern suburbs of the city. In the details that are just trickling in, a massive cloud of smoke rising been seen over the city after multiple blasts. These are the latest images that we're getting to you from on the ground as we piece together the developments. Remember, just to provide you some context, just yesterday, that's Thursday, the foreign minister of Israel rejected global calls for a ceasefire with Hezbollah group. Netanyahu has remained defiant, and Israel has continued airstrikes that have killed hundreds of people in Lebanon. And also heightened fears of a regional war. That remains a huge concern. The United States has been left frustrated, remember, after Netanyahu has defied ceasefire calls. Israel rejected a push by allies for a 21-day ceasefire in Lebanon and vowed to keep fighting Hezbollah until victory. In fact, the Israeli bombing of Iran-backed Hezbollah strongholds around Lebanon has killed hundreds of people just this week. If you have been following the developments, the group, of course, has also retaliated with rocket barrages. This is the latest round of escalation in hostilities between Israel and Lebanon as the region remains on the brink of an all-out catastrophic regional war. The United States, France and other allies, remember, unveiled the 21-day truce. This was on Wednesday. This was after President Biden and his French counterpart met on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. This was a push by the allies for a 21-day ceasefire in Lebanon. But Netanyahu has flatly rejected the ceasefire proposal on Thursday. Not just that, he ordered the military to continue fighting with full force. Binbin passed away 2 weeks ago on the 16th of September at the age of 77. For many Chinese citizens, she was seen as a key part of Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, a movement aimed at preserving Chinese socialism. A decade-long period in Chinese history from 1966 to 1976 defined by the preservation of communism and the removal of capitalism. Born in 1947, Binbin's moment of glory reportedly came on the 18th of August, 1966. As per reports, 1 million young Red Guards flooded Tiananmen Square in Beijing, chanting Chairman Mao, Chairman Mao. Mao Zedong at the time was leading China into the Cultural Revolution, remember, a movement aimed at eradicating the old ways, traditions, education and class structures. That day, a bespectacled teenage Song Binbin stepped forward on the balcony of Tiananmen Gate and pinned a bright red armband marked with the words Red Guard onto Mao's arm. Mao Zedong reportedly asked her name and questioned if her name, Binbin, meant refined and cultured, and remarked that she should be martial instead. From that moment, reportedly, Song Binbin became known as Song Yao, meaning to fight. And just days later, a state-run newspaper published an essay attributed to Song Yao, celebrating her moment with Mao Zedong. The essay, though likely not written by her, contained a line, "Violence is truth." Soon after, the Cultural Revolution turned even more violent. In August alone, over 1,700 people were killed in Beijing. And Song Binbin, a prominent Red Guard leader, was implicated in some of the earliest acts of violence. One of the most tragic incidents tied to Song Binbin occurred at her school, the experimental high school attached to Beijing Normal University. On the 5th of August, 1966, the school's vice principal, Bian Zongyun, became the first teacher to die in the Cultural Revolution. Reportedly was brutally beaten by students with clubs, scissors and ink. Song Binbin took part in the beating. That's what the reports say. Though Song Binbin's name became synonymous with the violence of the Red Guards, she remained silent for decades subsequently, especially after Mao Zedong's death. Her father, a high-ranking general, was purged during the revolution, and Song Binbin herself was exiled to Inner Mongolia. Eventually, she pursued higher education, earning a doctorate from MIT in the United States and settling into a quieter life as an environmental officer. Yet, her past never quite left her. In 2003, she broke her silence in the documentary Morning Sun, describing her encounter with Mao Zedong as a historical misunderstanding. She denied taking pride in the violence of those years. By 2012, she published an article expressing regret, but it wasn't until 2014 that Song Binbin made a public apology. standing before a bust of her former vice principal. She bowed and admitted her failure to protect her teachers, calling her inaction a lifelong source of anguish. Song Binbin's legacy remains complex. While she apologized for her role in the Cultural Revolution, she never named those responsible for BN's death. Even the widower rejected her apology, insisting that she could have done more to stop the violence. In the year 2022, Song Binbin was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away 2 weeks ago at 77, leaving behind a complicated history, one that reflects China's tumultuous times of the Cultural Revolution and another of her own struggle for personal redemption. And now some updates from the world of fashion. British supermodel Naomi Campbell has been barred from being a charity trustee in England and Wales for 5 years, as per reports. This comes after an inquiry into a charity she set up found that funds raised for good causes were used for spa treatments, luxury hotels, and cigarettes. That's a claim. According to the authorities, the charity founded by the 54-year-old model was deemed to have been poorly governed with inadequate financial management. The Charity Commission said it found multiple instances of misconduct and mismanagement, and that only 8.5% of the charity's overall expenditure went on charitable grants. London-born Campbell is one of an elite group of supermodels who dominated runways and magazine covers from the 1990s. She founded Fashion for Relief in 2005, aiming to raise funds for humanitarian causes by staging runway shows. But earlier this year, the charity was removed from Britain's list of charities. Just a day after being barred from being a charity trustee, Campbell was honoured by the French government. Speaking at the event, the British celebrity denied any responsibility for the mishandling of donations. She said, and I'm quoting, "I was not in control of my charity. I put the control in the hands of a lawyer." She also added that she was, quote, investigating to find out what and how, as everything she does and every penny she ever raised goes towards charities, quote unquote. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good weekend.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
On Wings this week, we feature India's emergence as a global leader in sustainable tourism, as World Tourism Day occurred this week. We cover some of the best and most scenic train routes you can explore in India. In southern Germany's Bavaria, Oktoberfest is in full swing. We show you what happens at the world's most famous beer festival. We also bring you unique and interesting stories from both above and below ground, from Istanbul to Morocco. This week on WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
This week on Tech It Out, we tell you about a new age technology that is driving the future of connected cars. We show you how 3D printing is revolutionizing the construction industry. And we give you a sneak peek into what visitors can expect at the Nintendo Museum. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 PM IST, 1 PM GMT.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists